Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall needs to happen this year. This is the fight that has captured the attention of the entire MMA world, and if the UFC lets it sit out for too long, it's gonna lose the magic. Now, don't get me wrong, we're getting some bangers this year. Hamzat versus Dricus du Plessis, that's gonna be wild. Possibly Ilya versus Islam, if it ends up happening. Crazy fights. Those are top tier matchups that fans are hyped for. But this, Jon Jones versus Aspinall, this is different. Right now, Tom Aspinall is peaking. He's the most exciting heavyweight in years, quick, technical, and dangerous, and fully confident. He's not just the interim champion because he beat someone. He's the guy people want to see fight for the undisputed title. The buzz around him isn't manufactured, it's real. He earned it, and Jon Jones, whether you think he's still the GOAT or not, he's still the undisputed champion. That's the story, the old king versus the new blood, the legend versus the future. Every week that passes chips away at the fire that this matchup has built. We're already deep into delay territory. We've seen Jones saying that he needs 6 months for like a training camp before he has a fight with Tom Aspinall. That's one of his demands. And Dana White's giving us the old, oh, we'll see. Fans aren't buying that forever. You can only dangle a mega fight for so long before people start tuning out. But let's be real, this could all be a mind game from Jon Jones. We know how calculated the guy is. He plays psychological warfare with his opponents for years, delaying the fight, consistently shifting timelines, stringing everyone along. It frustrates the fans, sure, but it also starts to wear on Tom Aspinall. You already seen it. Tom's done interviews where he straight up said he's bored of talking about it. That's not nothing. That's a reaction, and Jones is feeding off that. On top of that, you can't ignore the elephant in the room, the 6-month training camp. That's a red flag. People are speculating, and honestly with reasons. It could be about recovery, it could be about prepping for the most dangerous fight of his life, but it can also be giving himself enough time to cycle, because John's been popped before. We all remember the pulsing picogram saga, and now he's asking for half a year to get ready? Come on, man. And look, man, New York's not exactly known for being the strictest when it comes to testing. If they book this at MSG, Madison Square Garden, there's even more room for stuff to slide under the radar. Jones knows how the system works, and if this really is his last big fight, you think he's not going to do everything he can to make sure he's physically at his best. But here's what makes the fight even more compelling. Tom doesn't care. He literally said it himself. He doesn't care if John's on every substance under the sun. He just wants a chance to beat him. He wants to fight the guy that's the GOAT, the legend, the guy that everyone's been chasing. Even if Jones is cheating, Tom's down. That warrior mentality, that's how badly he wants this. So whether it's a mental tactic, a strategy delay, or a little bit of a sauce preparation behind the scenes, the whole thing is getting out of control. And again, every week this fight isn't getting booked, risks losing everything that made it special. We need a date. We need a venue. We need the UFC to stop letting Jones call the shots and just make this fight happen before the heat dies down, before the hype fades away, and before the narrative slips away from what it should be. You know, the baddest man in the world defending his throne against one guy who just might take it. And let's be real here, Dana White and the UFC have fumbled some massive fights before, like fights that we could have seen that could have changed the landscape of MMA, fights that were sitting right in front of them, and they let it slip. I mean, like Fedor versus Brock Lesnar. That was the fight in the early 2010s that we should have seen. You had the UFC's biggest pay-per-view star at the time in Brock, and Fedor was the most respected heavyweight on the planet, riding an insane win streak. And what happened? They couldn't close the deal. Fedor walked away. The UFC wouldn't budge. Then there was the Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones fight. And man, that was shaping up to be something historic. The scariest knockout artist in the UFC history versus arguably the greatest to ever do it. And it was right there, but then again, it got messy. Jon said that he needed stupid money to take the fight, and Francis, he wanted more money, more freedom, and more respect. The UFC wouldn't give it to him, so he dipped. Another super fight gone. So now we're here, third time's the charm, maybe. Tom Aspinall is right here, interim champion, full of momentum, healthy, hungry, and the perfect challenger for Jon. It's everything the UFC claim it wants, the best fighting the best, and this time, Dana knows he can't let it slip. You could tell by the way Dana talks, about this fight. He's been careful, but the tone is different. He sees the buzz. He knows the fans are losing their mind over this matchup, and Dana loves that. He lives for that. Say what you want to say about him, but when something gets red hot, he usually finds a way to make it happen, especially when Jon Jones is involved. Dana White has always protected Jones, always prioritized him. No matter what happened, suspensions, controversies, delays, he stood by Jon. He sees him as one of the last true megastars in the game, and now they can finally have the opponent that fans believe he can actually beat him. There's no way Dana's going to walk away from that, in my opinion. He's going to give him 6 months. Hell, he'll probably give him 9 if that's what it takes. He'll book it in New York. He'll build the card around it. And he'll let Jones call the shots like he always does. Because Dana knows this is the biggest fight in the UFC that they can make right now. Bigger than Chimaev versus Dricus. Bigger than Islam versus Ilya. This is legacy. This is money. This is headlines. And honestly, after missing out on Fedor, after missing out on Francis, Dana and the UFC can't afford to fumble this one. Not again. Not when the hype is already this loud. Not when Jon Jones is near the end and Aspinall is ready for the throne. They know what's at stake, and that's why I really believe they'll do whatever it takes to get this fight done this year. And let's talk about business, because this fight isn't just great for the sport angle, this is a true blockbuster, and that's a rare in today's UFC. I'm really talking about crossover energy. This is the kind of fight that can break through into the mainstream sport. You know, grab headlines outside of MMA and make people who don't even watch the fight say, yo, when is that Jones versus Aspinall card? This isn't your average numbered event. This is a once in a lifetime big fight feel that you just can't manufacture. Jones versus Aspinall has all the ingredients: legacy, danger, personality, hype, and global appeal. Everybody knows Jon Jones. Even people who don't follow MMA still recognize the name. He's one of the last remaining legends from that golden era from the UFC. You know, Jon Jones is still one of the few names that moves that needle. When he fights, people watch. And on the other side, you got Tom Aspinall, who's blowing up fast. He's got the UK behind him. He's got the respect from hardcore fans. And now the casuals are starting to take notice. He's everything you want in a new superstar. Well-spoken, humble, dangerous as hell, and generally likable. And if the UFC does this right, if they lean into this matchup, they can make him a global name overnight. And let's be honest for a second, the UFC doesn't have that many true superstars anymore. I'm not talking about the guys with million Instagram followers or cool knockouts. I'm talking about real box office draws. Guys who make headlines, drive pay-per-view sales, and bring in the casual audience. McGregor, MIA, Masvidal, retired, Khabib, gone. The newer names like Ilya, Chimaev, and Islam, they're all talented, maybe stars in the making, but they haven't cracked the code in the US market yet. Jon Jones is still one of those few guys who can do that. And now, finally, he has a dance partner that people actually believe he can beat him. That's what makes this fight dangerous and what can make this massive. This is the fight that can shake up the whole sport, and you can't let that moment pass. You can't sit on it for another year or just never hope that it happens or just never do it. You can't let it fade into the background while other matchups are getting booked. This is the one. This is the type of fight that shuts down everything up, stops the division from dragging, and puts the heavyweight MMA back onto the spotlight where it belongs. The longer you wait, the more you risk losing that spark. But if you book it this year, if you put on a massive card, build it the right way, and let these two walk into the cage under the bright lights, you're printing money, you're making history, you're giving fans what they actually want. Don't overthink it. Don't delay it. Just make the damn fight. And look, man, I think Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall will ultimately end up happening this year, but not for the reasons that you expect. I've actually heard Dana White guarantee that this fight is happening. We've seen it multiple times, and that tells me everything. I believe Jon is dragging this out, plain and simple. He's already making double-digit millions, and I 100% believe he'll be on PEDs if he steps in there. But the real reason for this delay, he knows how dangerous Tom Aspinall is. That's why he's been stalling. There's no other mega fight on the horizon like this, so eventually I think the UFC is going to be backed into a corner and have to make it. But here's the twist. I think they're waiting for the ESPN deal to expire. This fight feels too big for just another ESPN Plus pay-per-view. It smells like a debut for a new platform, maybe on Netflix, and if the deal goes through, this is the kind of fight you want to launch with.